Hello, and welcome to this AGU Career Center webinar featuring Alaina Levine. I'm David Harwell, Assistant Director for Talent Pool Programs at AGU, and I'll be your host for today's presentation. Our speaker, Alaina Levine, is an award-winning entrepreneur, science journalist, STEM careers consultant, professional speaker, and corporate comedian. Her book, Networking for Nerds, which is published by Wiley, was named one of the top 5 books for 2015 by Physics Today. As president of Quantum Success Solutions, she has been advising scientists and engineers about their careers for over 16 years. The title of Alaina's presentation today is I Have a Mentor, Now What? And I also wanted to point out that today is Ada Lovelace Day, an international celebration of women in science and technology, so a special shout out to the women who make science work. If you have questions during the presentation today, please type them into the question box, and we'll do our best to answer as many of them as we can. And now, Alaina, the stage is yours.
Thank you, David. It's a pleasure to be here with you today and with the American Geophysical Union. I'd like to thank you all so much for this opportunity to speak with you about a topic that really means a lot to me. I have a mentor. Now, what do I do? Because I myself have a lot of mentors. I also have a lot of protégés, which you will develop in your career as well, relationships with both mentors and protégés. And I want to help you and guide you to figure out, once you actually have established a relationship with a mentor, what do you do? What can you do to make this relationship successful? So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be talking about what defines a mentoring relationship, how to nurture that partnership, and we're also going to be discussing how we can determine the right communications techniques and channels so that you ensure that you're consistently communicating with your mentor and later with your protégé. In the way that they prefer and the way that makes sense for the relationship and where you are in the relationship. And here's a spoiler alert. I'm actually going to give you a few things that you include in your emails to your mentors throughout the year so that you can stay connected. And then we're going to also be discussing throughout the entire webinar how we can continue to leverage this relationship and keep it moving forward, helping it to grow. Now, with this webinar, we want to be as interactive as possible, and I want to hear from you. So we now have a poll question. David, take it away.
Okay, well, this is what we want to know. Do you have somebody now whom you consider a mentor? You have just a couple of selections here. You could say yes, you could say no, or you could say that you're unsure. And we want to make sure that we hear from you, and so I'm going to give you just a few more seconds before we close out the poll. In 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And Alaina, the answer for at least 75% of our attendees is yes. The other 25% are unsure. Nobody said no.
That is really interesting. Thank you all for being so honest about that. And for the 75% of you that know you do have a mentor, I'm really excited for you that you've just established this relationship, this partnership, this alliance with this other party. And for those of you who are unsure, I'm hoping that with this webinar, you will be able to realize that probably the relationship you have is a mentor-protégé relationship. So let's talk a little bit. Let's just talk about who are your mentors, because I know there's some confusion as to what actually constitutes a mentor and where you find them and who they actually are. So formal mentors could be people that are in a position of authority with you, or somebody who is a supervisor. They could be a boss. It could be your PI, your advisor for undergraduate, for graduate school. It could be somebody through a formal program, such as the AGU programs that are offered, which you've seen about on the slides, and you're going to see more about later. Many companies, many organizations, many institutions have their own formal mentoring programs that you can join, in which case they assign you a mentor or they guide you towards getting a mentor, finding a mentor. And then there's informal mentors, and quite honestly, the mentors that I have throughout my careers, because I've had multiple careers, as many of you know, and as many of you will have yourselves, the mentors that I've had are not people that I necessarily went to and said, will you be my mentor, please? It didn't really come that, it didn't lead in that direction. It was more of an informal relationship maybe somebody I met through networking, professionals who were excited about me and demonstrated that they wanted to work with me. And you're going to find that the informal mentors that you have, the people who you don't necessarily know, like for the 25% of you who were unsure whether you had a mentor, this is going to be where you're going to start to think, well, maybe this person can be a mentor to me, can act like a mentor to me. You know, many years ago, I was giving a speech on a program that I was overseeing at the University of Arizona, and the speech was for local business leaders. And after the speech ended, this gentleman just bopped over to the front of the podium and gave me his business card and said, you know, Alaina, I really like your passion. I really like what you had to say. I'd love to talk with you more. And so we set up a coffee appointment, and that led into another coffee appointment, and that led into us talking about how we could potentially collaborate. And this gentleman did not work in science. He did not work in higher ed. In fact, he worked in real estate, in mergers and acquisitions for real estate. But in the end, this person merged or emerged or evolved into a mentor for me. He gave me advice, he gave me ideas, he gave me inspiration as to how I could take my career into the next level. I'm going to tell you more about that in a bit. But the relationship that I had with him was very informal. We never went to each other and said, will you be my mentor? Will you be my protege? You'll find that that actually happens a lot. But one thing that you will find with mentors is that they want to help stars. Now, a star is not necessarily somebody who has achieved the level of success that is equivalent to a Nobel Prize, okay? That's a star. But somebody who is in their graduate school, somebody who's an undergrad, even somebody who doesn't have a degree, who is working really hard to improve themselves and the people around them and contribute to their field in a worthwhile, valuable way, those people are stars. So mentors look for stars, they recognize stars, they see stars, and those are the people they want to help. Those are the people they want to mentor. So they'll notice you because of your attributes, about your passion, about your intelligence, and about your great interest in improving your skill set. And they'll help you and want to help you advance. They'll want to help you fulfill your dreams and your goals. And they'll want to help you avoid mistakes along the way, because that's what mentors do. That's how mentors really make a difference. So what we want to do as potential proteges is we want to seek out those who can and actually want to help you. Those are going to be the mentors. And that's what I noticed in this real estate mergers and acquisition gentleman, that he actually wanted to help me. He saw something in me that showed passion and creativity and wanting to be successful, and he wanted to get on that ride. He wanted to be a part of that. So what do the mentors do? They serve as guides. They help you to understand the culture of the organization, of the field, of the industry, of the subdiscipline that you're interested in going into. They advise you on how to look for opportunities, how to land opportunities, what are the gateways to those opportunities, what are the golden gateways to those opportunities. They are there to assist you in providing you with this advice that can help you go to the next level in your career. They are also, interestingly, publicists for you. So they help to publicize you and your success and the value that you could potentially provide to new publics, to new people, to new organizations, to new groups of people, to get you the opportunities that you want. And they build bridges. They build bridges for you. They build bridges for your field, for your subfield, for your what it is that you're excited about. And they build bridges between individuals, between organizations, and even between disciplines. So what mentors actually provide is, if you think about it, they provide two types of information. They provide inside information, which is the inside information about skills that are needed, industry trends, company or organization needs, even awards. So inside information about what makes that field tick. What are the metrics of success in that field? How do you get those opportunities, and how do you land those opportunities? And then they provide what I call insight information. It's actually the mechanisms that you can pursue to actually improve on your skills, or what you need to succeed in this particular path. So the inside information is the facts about the field. The insight information are the opinions that they have gained over the many, many years of being in that field, being successful in their business, in their enterprise, to be able to help you be successful in yours. And most importantly, they provide access. So here's a concept that I want you to think about. A colleague of mine, Howard Adams, he is an expert in mentor-protégé relationships. He's even written about it. He speaks about it. And one thing that he just mentioned at a speech that I attended many years of his, was he talked about how mentors are the door openers. They're the people who give you advice. But this was the concept that really stayed with me. Mentors have access to the rooms, to the people, to the places, to the organizations, to the entry points that you as a protege may not have access to. So this is where a mentor can really, really help you, because see, if I'm your mentor, I'm attending a party with Elon Musk. Elon and I were buddies, and Bill Gates and I were friends, you know, and this person and that person and this Nobel Prize winner, I'm going to a meet up with him or her right now. But you might not necessarily have access to that party, or you might not have been invited to that event yet, right? You will in the future. But I do. And because I've gotten to know you as your mentor, I can potentially publicize you to Elon Musk. So I've gotten to know your expertise, and I know that you're really interested in volcanology, and that's your expertise, and that's what your passion is. And so when I'm talking with Elon Musk and he says, you know, Alaina, I have such a big problem. We're trying to send a new spacecraft into space, but we want to have somebody on the team who can help us understand the volcanology of Mars and help us look at volcanoes and the volcanology systems of Earth from up in space. Woe unto me! I wish I could find a volcanologist. But I'm in that room with Elon. We're hanging out. We're having some delicious, you know, meatballs and some wonderful cosmos. And I say to Elon, I say, guess what? My protege, Mary, she is a volcanologist. I'd be happy to introduce you to her. I've solved Elon's problem. And for you, Mary, in this equation, you're my protege, I've helped you by publicizing you and giving you access to Elon Musk. That's really important. And remember that the mentor is there also. What their role is, I just want to quickly tell you about this, is that they're going to be listening to you. They're going to see what they can do to guide you towards what you need, not necessarily what they need. And they're going to foster the relationship. They want to create a relationship that is something that provides value between both of you. So they're going to be really amazing in terms of that element of it. As I mentioned, they're going to provide guidance, advice. They're also going to provide inspiration. They're going to look to value you as a person, not a clone, okay, not a twin, but as a person, an individual who has their own dreams and goals. And this is really important for you to remember, because if you are ever treated like a clone, or if you're treated and you are devalued, you're not treated like a person, this person that potentially could be mentoring you is probably not somebody that you want as your mentor. So you want to create and you want to have with this person a very good relationship where there's mutual trust and respect, and you know that they will maintain your confidentiality. They are there for you to be honest with them with what you want and need out of your career and your life, and they're going to maintain that confidentiality as much as possible. The other thing is that the mentor, because they are trying to help you succeed, they're going to be both your champion. So they're going to say, go for this. Yes, that's a great idea. But they're also, a really good mentor is going to play devil's advocate. And I'm bringing these things up to you because I want you to be aware of what your mentor should and could and would be doing for you. Especially for those of you that are unsure about what your mentor-protege relationship is, I want you to know that this is something that they should be doing. They should be saying, well, you know, if you apply for this fellowship, that will take you out of the running for this other type of fellowship. Or if you study abroad, or if you go to Japan for this fellowship, or go to Japan for this particular research project, that means that you won't be able to do this, or you won't be able to attend this conference. That's really great. They're being honest with you, and they're helping you see all of the options and all of the ramifications of your decision making. They also provide the unwritten rules of the ecosystem, the industry, and the organization, even the field, the subfield, and the sub-subfield that's relating to the culture. They offer resources, right? This is important too. They can say, you know, you want to apply for this fellowship, or you want to talk to this person, or you want to attend this conference and this particular workshop at the AGU fall meeting, because that is a great resource to help you achieve your goals. So what value can a protege provide? And this is really important, because a lot of people come to me and they say, Alaina, I have a mentor, but what could I possibly give that mentor. I am, X number of years old. I'm only, maybe 5 years out past my postdoc, past my graduate degree, or maybe I'm mid-career and I have a mentor who's a senior leader and I don't know what I could potentially provide that person. They seem like a Dr. God. That's my reference, my respectful way and jokingly way of calling the people that are senior level in their careers. I call them Dr. Gods, and I have people ask me that question: why could I possibly provide value? What is that value that I could potentially provide, Dr. God? So I want you to be aware that we're talking about a mutually beneficial, a win-win alliance between you and your protege. So you as a protege can provide this Dr. God, this mentor. You can provide ideas and inspiration. Inspiration can come from anywhere. You have your own networks that you could potentially provide for them. You're resourceful, so you're giving them that contact to help them solve a problem in a new way. You're enabling their success by giving them this information and these ideas. You also have different perspectives on problems because of the fact that you have knowledge of trends and technologies and tools that the mentor might not have been trained in. I was talking to a Nobel laureate just recently, and he was telling me that, when I'm working with a protege, they were trained in social media, they were trained in scientific techniques and laboratory skills and laboratory equipment that didn't even exist when I was a student. So I rely on them to help me understand those technologies and really leverage those trends and tools to move my career and my research in a new direction. And also, you got to remember that you are their future. At some point, believe it or not, your mentor will drop dead. And when they do, you're going to be the one who's going to take their research into the next millennium, the next 100 years, maybe even the next dimension. Who knows? So the value that you can provide includes advice. You can provide them advice. You can provide them letters of reference. You can even provide them with inside information. And of course, you can help to promote them. And so there's so many things that you as a protege can do. And David, I think we have a poll question because I'd like to ask the audience a question.
We absolutely do. So this poll question is, who drives the mentor-protégé partnership? Is it the mentor, the protégé, both, or you're unsure? You can choose any of those 4 options, and I'm going to give you just a few moments to participate because we want to hear from all of you. Also, if you have a question for Alaina, if that's been building up inside of you, please type it into the question box. We look forward to seeing that. And we'll close our poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So Alaina, with 77%, people said both.
Wow. And this is a little bit of a trick question. So for those of you who said both, I'm really glad for you because you're thinking in terms of that mutually beneficial partnership that you're looking to craft. So that's really great. But the reality is that the actual driver of the partnership, the one who's behind the driver's seat, it's not the mentor and it's not both, but it's actually the protege. This is where you have a lot of power because you're the one who actually determines the culture of the relationship, the nature of the relationship. And yes, it is a win-win partnership where you're both providing value, but the one who sets the tone for the relationship is the protege. I'm going to talk you through this because this is important. One of the things that you do as a protege is you actually help plan the relationship out. You bring up what goals you want to look into, what milestones you have in mind, what timelines you might be thinking about in terms of meeting those goals. You serve as a resource partner because you're working together to identify resources that are needed for both of you to succeed, and you also are serving as a continuous learner. So you're always seeking to improve your skills. This is really important to be thinking about. But the one who actually makes the decision that a relationship will actually occur is the protege. This doesn't mean that you go to somebody and say, "Will you be my mentor?" The relationship may organically develop into that, but the one who actually drives it is the protege. And let me just give you an example of that. With that protege, with that mentor that I mentioned to you, the one who works that I have, the one who works in mergers and acquisitions real estate, this person has served as a great mentor to me, but aside from that initial meeting when he saw me present, saw my passion and my interest, and gave me his business card and said, please follow up with me, he was putting the ball in my court. He was basically saying, if you want to meet with me, please, yeah, I mean, that's exactly what he said, follow up with me. It wasn't him saying, let's meet right now, I'm going to tell you what to do. It wasn't like that at all. It was, I'd like to maybe help you, but you have to make the first move. And so that's what he was offering me, was the chance to set the tone for our relationship. And it led to, like I said, it led to a number of different meetings, and it led to me feeling comfortable with him, where I could call him or email him with questions that came up, with information, with advice that I needed as I was moving about my careers. And it didn't matter, and this is really important, it did not matter that he was not in science. It did not matter that he was not in education. This is a really important point for you to remember, that your mentors should be diversified. Yes, it's great to have mentors who are in your subfield of volcanology, and it's great to have mentors who are in volcanology and in geosciences and in science and in higher education, or whatever your industry of interest is. Yes, you want to have those, but you want to diversify. So you want mentors in other arenas, other geographic areas, other careers as well, because inspiration and ideas and knowledge can come from anywhere. And somebody who is successful, like that guy, like that mergers and acquisition real estate guy, he's able to help me as his protege, even though he's not in science, even though he's not in higher education. I'm going to talk to you more about that, but I just wanted you to know that. So your role is to learn the tools, the tips, the tactics of your trade, and listen to their advice. See what they're saying, both directly and indirectly, maybe with physical, like actual words, like, Alaina, you might want to apply for this fellowship, or, I don't know, Alaina, that fellowship sounds great, but what about your opportunity to go do research in Japan? That's a little bit of an indirect notice. They also might be giving me advice verbally, by actually saying something, or non-verbally. Like if I'm having a cup of coffee with them, you're going to get to know the non-verbal cues of your mentor, which is why Skype appointments, if they're far away, or in-person appointments are really good, so that you get to know when they twitch their eye, or when they smile, or when they cross their arms, you can tell that that probably is their way of saying, this is not maybe the right move for you, but let me explain why. It's really interesting. And, another thing that you should be thinking about as a protege is to look for opportunities to practice mentoring others, because you will not always be, unless you have a time machine or a time stopper, and if you do, please tweet me, you will not always be the protege in the equation. You will be a mentor as you advance in your career. And in fact, I'm sure many of you know about peer mentoring programs that exist within universities and institutions and even within fields. And I really encourage you to take advantage of those opportunities, because the more you learn to mentor others, it also will help you to be a better protege, to be somebody who can really drive that relationship in an appropriate professional way. And I can imagine that you're probably thinking, well, Alaina, going back to that concept about the protege driving the relationship, I don't want to step on my mentor's toes. They are a Dr. God. They are a Nobel laureate. They are the head of this laboratory or this division or this department. How could I potentially drive a relationship with them when they're so far up in their career? The key is to make sure that you communicate using their communication preferences or communication channel preferences, which we'll talk about shortly, and also to make sure that you emphasize that you want to see what you can do to help them succeed just as much as you'd like to learn from them about how you can be successful. Another thing that's really important is that, and I kind of hinted at this earlier, is that when you have a mentor, you want to make sure that they truly are somebody who has your back. That's a phrase, right? Meaning that they have your best interests in mind always, and not somebody who's working behind the scenes to bring you down like a zombie, somebody who's looking to suck the creative life out of you, the creative juices out of you, and just ruin your reputation. You need to know that this is somebody who you can trust 100% of the time, whether you're physically in the same space as them or not. And if they are a zombie, no matter how high up you think they are in the world of your interests, whether they're the top geoscientist in your field or subfield, or they're the top person running the laboratory that's your dream lab of working in, even if they are in that position, that's not their right. It does not give them a right to disrespect you in any way. they have to respect you 100% of the time. So if you find that somebody who you'd like to be a mentor turns out to be a zombie, then don't think that just because they're so high up that they should be your mentor or can be your mentor. Run away from them. We know zombies don't think, they just eat brains, and that's the way these people react as well. So we're going to run away from them. They should not be your mentor if they are disrespecting you. But for those that are respecting you, those that truly show you that they are somebody that wants to help you, you want to stay in contact with them. So we have to identify what the right channels are to communicate with the mentor. Now the mentor will tell you what these are. You will ask the mentor, do you prefer me to text? Is that okay? You know, there are some people, not millennials, but boomers and people who are older than that, who don't like text. They feel it's an invasion of their privacy, of their space. Whereas millennials, people who are younger, they have grew up texting. So it's totally fine for them to just text something really quickly to somebody. It's not even an issue in their mind. But yet there are people my age and older who might find it to be inappropriate. So you can ask me, if I'm your mentor, you can say, Alaina, would you prefer me to send you a carrier pigeon or telegraph you, or would you prefer a text? Is a text okay? Should I reach out to you via email? Should I tweet you? When we have our meetings, can we have a Skype meeting? Is that okay? Don't just assume that if we're going to have an appointment that we're going to do it by Skype. Ask me what I would prefer. Would I prefer phone, Skype, or telegraph? Hey, David, guess what? I think we have another poll question. I'd love to ask the audience this question.
Sure. So here it is. This is all about you. How often should I communicate with my mentor? Do you think it should be multiple times each day, every day? Every day, every day, every day? Maybe it's a few times a month, a few times a year, or only when they reach out to me. Or then again, it could be only on special occasions. Let us know which one of these responses means the most to you, which one would match what you think. And by the way, we want to thank Jana Mindrak. She's joining us from Sweden. You have just won the award. There's nothing to the award, but you are the furthest away from us. So thanks for joining us in the middle of the night. And I'll close the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So the number one answer here with 55% is a few times a month. 31% is a few times a year.
That's really interesting, and thank you so much for being so honest to the audience. And Jana, thank you for joining us in the middle of the night in Sweden. You know, for all of you who answered, you know, this also is a little bit of a trick question. 55% of you said a few times a month. I would agree with you in certain circumstances, depending on where you are in the relationship, the nature of the relationship, and also what you're trying to build with the relationship, and also where you are in your career, right? If the mentor is helping you right now on a project, maybe they're helping you to apply for a fellowship or to help you connect with somebody in Sweden to create a research project or a research opportunity where you could go to Sweden, then, and I now know somebody who could connect you, that might constitute having a meeting or several communications over the course of a month. For the 31% of you who said a few times a year, that's generally what I use as my sort of my guideline, as I try to check in with my mentor about a few times a year. And I'm going to talk about what I mean by a meaningful engagement in a moment. And a few of you said that we should check in multiple times every day, each day, no matter what it is. And I guess if you were waiting to find out if you were getting the Nobel Prize that day, then that might be appropriate. But in general, it's most appropriate to have a meeting with them or to connect with the mentor a few times a year, depending on what you're working on right now. So what I mean when I say plan to have a meaningful engagement at least once a year. I call a meaningful engagement a phone call, a Skype appointment, a meeting in person, perhaps at the fall AGU meeting, right? Maybe you're going to both be at that conference, so you can say to your mentor, hey, Dr. X, I'm going to be at the meeting. I'm going to be presenting a poster. I'd like to invite you to the poster, and can we meet for a cup of coffee while we're both in San Francisco? So the meaningful engagement should be basically an opportunity for you to reconnect with the mentor in person and via speech, right? And if you're doing it via Skype or phone, that's fine too if they're far away and you just can't meet them in person. But the opportunity here, and this is why I call it a meaningful engagement, is to really update the mentor on what you're working on right now, to give them information and value that could potentially help them, and to give them information and value that could potentially help them to think of opportunities where they could help you. So it really is a chance to reconnect, recalibrate, and also to see if there's any conflicts. We could potentially get rid of those conflicts or misunderstandings when we're having that meaningful engagement. So once a year, shoot for that. You can have it multiple times a year, but that's what I do. Like, I will make sure to set up a phone appointment or a Skype appointment with each of my mentors at least once a year. I want to just follow up with you, check in with you. I want to see how you're doing. I want to share with you about some of the successes I've had and see how I might be able to help you. So that's the kind of phrase, those are the kinds of phrases that I use. And if I am going to be in their city, like I have one of my mentors who lives in New York, and every time I know I'm coming to New York City, I let him know so that we can have a cup of coffee or meet for dinner. What I do with my mentors is that I do check in with all of them at least once a quarter. So at least 4 times a year, I'm going to reach out to them. And I'm going to tell you what I'm going to put in that email in just a moment. But one really great way and one really great time of year that you can reconnect with your mentor is during the holiday season. I try to send holiday greetings to my mentors. Now, I do not send Merry Christmas. I do not send religion-specific greetings unless I specifically know that they celebrate that specific holiday. Instead, I send them season's greetings. I hope you're having a wonderful holiday season. I'm not going to, unless, again, if I have a relationship where I know that they celebrate this, I'm going to maybe say that. But if I don't, I want to be sure that I don't insult them or offend them in any way, so I'm going to keep it very light. I hope you're having a wonderful holiday season. Or, hey, by the way, are you going to be at the fall meeting for AGU? Why don't we get together? And Happy New Year to you and your family. When they email me or when they send me a note, I'm going to respond to their query or their note or their email, their text, whatever it is. I'm going to do that very quickly. And be aware that you don't have to text with them or text them every day. That's not required. A strong partnership with your mentor can stand the tests of time and changes in geography and even jobs and industries. And this is where the diversification comes in handy. Let me just mention this for a second. Again, going back to that mentor who works in real estate and mergers and acquisitions. I told you earlier that's very important to diversify your mentor relationships, your relationships with mentors. You diversify the people with whom you craft relationships that are mentor-protégé relationships. And quite honestly, as you advance in your career, that also is going to be the same rule for the relationships that you craft with potential protégés. You want to diversify. But a lot of people don't understand, why would I want a mentor who's in real estate if I have nothing to do with real estate? If I'm not in real estate, how could a mentor potentially help me? And this is where it really comes in handy to be thinking about how a mentor can be a conduit to information and inspiration and ideas from their world that could potentially help you in your world. So here's a great example. With that same mentor who works in real estate, mergers and acquisitions, we met over the course of a number of years. We get together for lunch every now and then. I'd call him, like I said, to tell him what I was up to or email him. But I checked in with him several times a year, like I mentioned to you. And one time I had arranged, or not arranged, but another mentor actually, had reached out to me and asked me if I would be interested in appearing on the local radio station here in Tucson, Arizona. He had arranged some sort of deal himself, and he needed potential guests on this hour-long radio show, which was a business show. And I was overseeing a master's program at the University of Arizona at the time that combined science with business. So my job was to get my students jobs in industry and to connect with businesses. So when this person came to me and said, would you appear as a guest on this radio program to talk about that master's program, I said yes right away. But then I started getting really nervous because I'd never been on the radio except to scream, hooray, I won the concert tickets, yes! I had no knowledge of what the ins and outs and what the details were like associated with being a radio guest. So what did I do? I emailed my mentor. I emailed the real estate guy because I knew even though he'd never been on the radio, or not been on the, I don't know if he had been on the radio, even though he wasn't in the radio industry, and even though he wasn't in science or in education, I knew that he was successful in his field enough that he understood about this type of publicity. And if he didn't have the information, he would point me in the direction of somebody who would. So I emailed him and I said, could you give me some advice? I'm going to be appearing on the radio. I'd like to make sure I'm successful. And he was more than happy to do that. So we had a phone appointment, and he gave me all sorts of really great tips and tactics to be great and clarify my points and to make sure that I was eloquent. And I said thank you so much. I invited him to the time and date of when the show was going to be on the air. And then, of course, I sent him a thank you note and expressed my appreciation for helping me to be successful in that endeavor. And here was somebody who was not in radio, he was not in my field, but he was able to assist me. He was able to advise me and, in a certain respect, even publicize me because he told people to listen to the show. This is the value of diversification of having a mentor who is not necessarily in your field. So a strong partnership does not necessarily have to be with somebody who's in your field, and a strong partnership can stand the test of time and changes in jobs and geographies and industries. So even if you leave volcanology in 5 years, maintain connections with that mentor in volcanology. Because if you decide to go to New York and bake cupcakes, if that is your dream, and you leave volcanology, you never know where that person could potentially help you, and vice versa. Now, when you communicate with your mentor, I actually wanted to tell you what you should say in emails, because that's something that people ask me all the time. Once I have a relationship with my mentor, Alaina, now what do I do? How do I keep the momentum going? How do I keep the connection going? How do I know what to say? I've already told them I'm getting my PhD, or I have my PhD from the University of X. I'm interested in volcanology. Now what do I say? So here are the things that you put in the emails. These are the emails that you have, that you construct over the course of the year, right? 4 times a year you're going to reach out to them. And these are the types of things that you want to put in the email. And you can put one of these, you can put a combination of these. I often use multiple versions of this. So I'll use 1, I'll use 2, I might even use all 4. Here's what you say. Number 1, you're going to introduce new information about yourself. Dear Dr. X, since the last time we spoke, I hope all is well. I wanted to let you know I just got the Nobel Prize in Physics, and I thank you so much for your help. So you introduce new information about yourself. And this information, if you won an award, if you won a fellowship, if you won a prestigious post, or if you just got a new job, you are not bragging. Do not think that this is bragging to your mentor. You need the mentor to know that you've been successful, especially if they've helped you. So that's not bragging, that's sharing with them facts, data about your existence, about your career that they need to know. Don't think that that's bragging. And if you feel more comfortable, which is what I like to do, I will say, thank you so much for your help. I couldn't have done this without you. And quite honestly, that's all 100% true. I never lie. I couldn't be successful without my mentors, and I couldn't be successful without my protégés. So number 1, I'm going to introduce new information about myself. And it could be, hey, I went and tried this new technique that you told me about, or hey, I just wrote a paper, or hey, I just got my poster accepted at the fall meeting. I'll see you there. Number 2, you're going to introduce new information about the mentor. So, dear Dr. X, since we last met, or since we last spoke, I saw that you won the Nobel Prize. That's wonderful. Congratulations. I'm thrilled for you. I can't wait to see what you're going to say in your acceptance speech. Show the mentor that you're keeping track of their successes. Show the mentor that you're keeping track of what they're doing in their lives. This is totally appropriate, and it's part of your job as the driver of this relationship to keep on point of what's going on in the mentor's life. And LinkedIn, by the way, is a very good resource for this. Number 3, we're going to introduce information that would help the mentor. Dear Dr. X, when we last spoke, we talked about volcanology and the issue of the chemistry associated with particularly loud eruptions. And I remembered you had mentioned this, and I just saw this paper in this publication, I just saw this paper. Here is a link to the paper associated with the chemistry, the geochemistry, associated with very loud eruptions versus very soft eruptions, very strong eruptions versus very quiet or weak eruptions. I thought this would be useful for you. So you give them a link to a paper, a poster, you give them a link to a person, you give them a link to a video. No cat pictures, unless that's their business. If their business is cats, then that's fine. But you're going to provide them something of value always. So the information that you give them now is going to be information that would help them. And a cat picture, as delightful as cat pictures are, it's not necessarily going to help them in their career. So I'm looking to provide value to that mentor. And then the fourth thing I say in the email is I give them an action item, which continues the relationship. It causes the person to respond to the email. And what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to give them an action item that requires them to think about it for 30 minutes. So I'm not going to say to them, you know, I read your most recent paper, so that's information about them, right? I noticed that you just published in this magazine or this journal. This was really interesting to me. As you know, I really enjoy volcanology, so that's introducing information about yourself, right? I saw that you chose to use instrument X instead of instrument Y. Why did you decide to do that? So that question is a very open question, and that could require them to have to come up with a long answer. But instead, if you ask them a yes/no question or gave them an action item like, you know, I saw that you chose instrument X. Have you found that instrument X has been useful to you in this type of a problem? That requires 30 seconds of brain time. That's going to be something that they're going to respond to. So that's the kind of action item that you provide them, something that will give them value and something that will allow them to quickly respond but keep the relationship going. With this partnership, we're going to think long-term, very long-term. So we're going to remember that the relationship is going to emerge and evolve and wax and wane organically. And that's totally fine. That's totally fine. But we are going to keep it professional. That's why the cat pictures don't come in, right? So we're going to keep it professional, showing that we're serious about our craft and serious about their craft. We're serious about their goals, their life interests, and we're going to strive for that diversity, as I mentioned. If conflicts arise, we're going to look to solve them very, very quickly. And if we're not sure if a conflict is there, we're going to ask them, do you think that we're at a juncture? Do you think that there's a problem here? Do you think that there's a conflict here? I want to make sure that I'm communicating. I don't want a miscommunication. I want to make sure that I'm communicating in the right way with you. Not everyone will want to be your mentor, and that's totally fine. If you enter into a relationship with somebody who wants to back off, this person is probably not interested in being your mentor, and that's fine. That's no problem. And not everybody will want to continue being your mentor, and you don't need to take this personally. Think of this more like a business type of a thing. Yes, they're helping you with your personal goals, but this is more of a professional relationship. So if they don't want to continue being your mentor, then just let them be. Doesn't mean you don't have to continue communicating with them. You could still send them a holiday greeting or send them an email once a year, but you don't necessarily have to email them 4 times a year. And from your perspective also, you won't want every person that you meet to be your mentor either. So that's another thing to be thinking about. So in conclusion, mentor-protégé partnerships can be absolutely invaluable. They can be invaluable to you, and they can be invaluable to your mentor. And that's really what you want to be thinking about, is the value exchange between the two of you. But remember that mentors don't want to help people who want to stay where they are and complain about it. They want to help stars, people who want to reach for the stars, people who want to be successful. And you can be successful and be a star at any phase in your career as long as you demonstrate that you're interested in improving and improving the lives of your team as well. It's okay to make mistakes, even with your communicating with your mentors. I've done it. I've made mistakes. I've miscommunicated a concept or accidentally insulted my mentor. I own up to those mistakes. I make sure that I understand what caused the mistake, and I go on, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to try and leverage that partnership to help both you and your mentor by providing value. Utilize their preferred communication methods so you get off on the right foot, resolve those conflicts quickly, and learn from them so you can be a great mentor yourself, because that relationship that you have with your protégés is so precious and wonderful. I can't wait for you to move forward with that. So with that in mind, I want to wish you the very best. I'm so excited for you to be thinking about this and to be moving forward in your career. And I thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you about this topic today. David, you have the mic.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for a wonderful presentation. We've already gotten a couple of thank yous coming in the question box, so I'll pass those on to you. We also have several questions, but we'd love more. So if you have a question for Alaina, please add it to the question box. And I just wanted to mention that we have several mentoring programs that will be taking place at the fall meeting, the AGU fall meeting coming up in December in San Francisco. So an index of those are on the screen now. But let's get to your questions. So this one's coming in from Eric, and he wants to know, what should I do if my mentor and my research advisor don't get along?
Oh, Eric, that's a great question. Thank you so much for having the courage to ask that. And that is unfortunately something that a lot of scientists, in fact, professionals of all fields and all areas, have to deal with when two mentors, particularly the one who's your boss and somebody else who might be in the same subfield, don't get along. So the way I would handle it is the following: is first of all, as much as possible, and of course it depends on the individual circumstance, right? I don't know if they're both in the same building as you or in the same research group as you, but I'm going to assume for a moment that they're not in the same research group, that maybe Dr. X, your mentor, is at the University of Arizona, and your other mentor, your advisor, is obviously with your institution right now. So if they don't get along, there's no sense in putting fuel on the fire. So what I would do is I would try to not bring up the other party when I'm talking to the person that is in front of me or on the phone with me at that moment, right? I would see what I could do to understand, if there is a way to understand, what is the driver between those two butting heads. Why is there a conflict? Am I causing or fostering the conflict in any way? And it might be that, quite honestly, for where you are in your career right now, that it might be that you might have to pull back from one of your mentors, and most likely it would be the other person at the other institution, for a little bit while you finish up with your advisor, since that person is going to be signing the dissertation or signing the postdoc appointment that you have right now. And if that's the case, then unfortunately that's just the way we're going to have to deal with it. This is an unfortunate situation, and in summary, what I want to say to answer this question is that there's no right way to answer it, and also I can't answer it completely because I don't have all of the data in front of me. I don't know how they interact. I don't know what caused the conflict in the first place. I don't know what the nature of the conflict is. But what I can say is that I'm glad you're aware that it exists, so that you can see what you can do to just separate the two if at all possible, and just develop two parallel relationships without involving the other party.
Okay, so we have two questions coming in about the correspondence that you have with your mentor. You mentioned 4 things that should go in that email. Deborah's asking, do you always put 4? Do you have to put all 4? Could they be in different emails?
Yes, right. Great. Thank you, Deborah. No, you don't. You can put 1, and this is just my guideline. I mean, you could do your emails completely all, differently. I'm just going to pull up that slide so I can just show you something with that. So you can put 1 of these things, you could put a couple of these things, you could put all 4, but quite honestly, for the most part, the emails that you have over the course of the year with the individual mentor, you'll probably only use 1 of those things in each email. It's up to you how you do it.
Yeah, I think what you've established here and what's important is that you've got to give before you can get, right? And so you're making it valuable, the relationship valuable for the mentor. And if you've done that over time, it may be that you could just go to them with a request.
Exactly. Or just a note that says, hey, I just wanted to let you know I just got this fellowship and I'm really excited about it, and I just wanted to share it with you because you really helped me, and that's totally fine.
So that leads into Yana's question, and she wants to know, do you just talk about the positive stuff? What about the failed applications you had to deal with, or the rejected papers, issues where you need a shoulder to cry on?
Yeah, Yana, thank you for asking that, because that's another thing that a mentor should be doing for you. When you have a potential failure or a potential setback, that is where the mentor can help you. And I've gone to my mentors and I've said, I'd like to talk with you. I have a conflict, I have a problem. Something happened and I really want to just learn what it is that happened. I want to understand what it was so I can make sure that this doesn't happen again, or I can make sure I can grow from this. So yes, you want to share with the mentor your successes, but when you have setbacks and when you have mistakes, it's a good idea to also share that with the mentor too. And you'll know which mentors to share some mistakes with and which mentors not to. Because honestly, there are going to be some mentors that I have, because not every mentor-protege relationship is the same, and not every mentor that I have I communicate with or talk about the same things, right? They're not a clone of each other. So with the real estate guy, I might not necessarily talk about a failure that I might have had in my business. I might talk about it more with another mentor who's known me longer, who's been with me through thick and thin, who's already seen me both at my best and potentially at my worst. So that person is going to be the person who I'm going to share that with. So Yana, yes, you can share these things. You'll just have to figure out who it is that you want to share it with and also how you want to share it with. And the best way, in my opinion, to share a potential setback is to say, I have a problem, or I had a setback, I didn't get this fellowship, or I got I submitted a paper and the reviewer number 2 wrote 17 paragraphs about how I have to change my formatting, or I have to change this, or I have to change that. I want to understand how I can do better. And Yana, that question, I want to understand how I can do better, that is an open door to the mentor to help you and also to see that you truly are a star, that you want to succeed, and you want to see what you can do to learn from the mistakes that everybody will make, because we are not infallible.
Okay, and we have time for just a few more questions. If you have one, go ahead and get it in the queue now, and I'll try and get to as many as we can. But here's another one from Deborah. She wants to know what percentage of mentors expect their protege to drive the relationship. Is that really what they want?
That's a great question. And and that's when you're meeting with your mentor and when you're developing your relationship with your mentor, you can ask them about what their expectations are. You can ask them what they hope to get out of this experience. You can ask them what they hope to get out of the partnership. You can actually ask them these straight questions to see what it is they have to say about that. But yes, the mentor is expecting the protege to drive the relationship, because they don't want to handhold you to success. They don't want to say or spoon feed you, and they're not your mommy or your daddy. That's really important. They're not there to actually say, all right, you really got to apply for this. All right, have you applied for this? All right, you're going to apply for this tomorrow, right? They're not there to do that. They're there to be your coach. They're there to say, all right, go for this. Or I heard about this opportunity, and you're going to be the one who says, I really want to apply for this opportunity. Could I have an appointment with you to go over how I should structure my application? That's what I mean by you driving the relationship. They don't want to handhold you. They want to help you. They want to give you a hand up, but they don't want to spoon feed you the information. And here's a great story of this. Many years ago, I was giving a talk on career development at a class at the University of Arizona. And as I finished the class, a young man caught my eye, and he came up to me and he says, Alaina, can I make an appointment with you? I don't have a job, and I'm going to be graduating this semester. It was like March, so he was going to be graduating in 2 months. Could I make an appointment with you to learn more about what I can do to get a job? And I said, absolutely. So he came to my office, and I started speaking with him, and I asked him some questions. And what I noticed was he did not have a notebook. He did not have a pen. He didn't have a computer with him. He wasn't taking any notes as I was giving him ideas. I started giving him names of people he should be speaking with. I started giving him companies that he should look at, websites that he should go to for finding a job. He wasn't writing any of this down. I turned to him and I said, I don't understand. Do you need a pen? Why aren't you writing this down? Is this useful to you? Is this the kind of information you needed? He said, yes, it's useful to me. I didn't bring a pen with me. I said, well, would you like a pen? And he said, yes. So I gave him a pen and I gave him a pad, and he started writing it down. But he wasn't asking me, at that point, he stopped asking me questions. And I felt that I was just there, just giving him information, essentially spoon feeding the information into his brain. And he was not giving me any back and forth. He wasn't showing me that it was valuable. He wasn't showing me that it was something that that would help him. And he certainly wasn't saying, well, that's really interesting, Alaina. Why did you suggest that I speak with this company? What's your experience with them? So I really felt that he expected me to hand him a job. And really if he was to become my protege, what he should have done was say, that's totally fine. Could you help me find a job? Could you help me understand how I could find a job? Come prepared to the meeting. Come and ask me questions. Lead the conversation. Drive the conversation by asking me questions as opposed to me trying to spoon feed that information into his brain. And that's what I mean by the protege driving the relationship. Ask the questions. Learn what it is that you can from the mentor. Ask their advice about specific things. Don't expect that they will just hand you advice without you prompting them first.
That leads in pretty well to the next question that we have from Justice. So Justice wants to know, you emphasized that you need to provide value to the mentor, but what if they're up really high? So, for example, the president of a major company. So
Yeah.
what could you communicate to them that adds value to them?
Thank you, Justice, for asking that question. And as a reference point, I want to point you all to an article that I recently wrote for Science Magazine. And the article is called Networking with Dr. God. It's actually called that. See, I told you I call these people Dr. Gods. So you can Google my name and Science Magazine, or just go to sciencecareers.org and you'll find the article Networking with Dr. God, which goes into this very subject. In fact, I interview a CEO of a major hospital cancer center and asked him how he interacts with proteges and what is the value that the protege could potentially offer a CEO, potentially offer a Nobel laureate, potentially offer a lab director, or a senior member of your community. And really what it comes down to is, number one, if they are so successful, they typically understand that to be successful, they have to continuously learn, and they have to be apprised and be aware of the new trends, the new technologies, the new information that's coming out in the pipeline that may be even launched right now that they did not have access to for their brains when they were learning the skills or when they were in school. They have, like I mentioned earlier, there are technologies that did not exist when these CEOs and these Nobel laureates were in school. And so they are dependent upon the younger generation, the earlier career scientists and engineers and other types of professionals, to explain and to provide the value of this is how you use this technique. This is what this tool could potentially do. So that's one thing, is giving that information that they didn't have access to. They also understand, when they are at that level, they understand that inspiration can come from anywhere. And they especially understand that inspiration comes when you engage somebody who is young and or early in their career. So you don't necessarily have to be quote unquote young. You can be early in your career, and who is hungry. They want to learn more. They want to be successful. And here's the key thing, engaging somebody who doesn't know that they shouldn't ask a question or that they could potentially fail. See, when you see little kids, they jump off of the swing set, they jump off of the playground equipment because they don't know that they shouldn't. They don't know that they could fall or hurt themselves. They just jump. And that's what senior members of your field, that's how they view the hungry early career scientists. They view you as people who are so passionate about your work, but yet early in your career you don't know what's not possible. So you ask a lot of questions, and you ask why not and why, and we did it this way, well, why didn't we do it that way? You don't necessarily know what questions have already been answered, what questions should not be asked. You don't know that there's failure, because you just haven't tasted it yet in this field. And that kind of engagement, that's extremely valuable for a senior member of your community, because that person can gain inspiration and ideas to take their research in a new direction. So bottom line, Justice, you and your early career colleagues, you have the opportunity to provide value in multiple ways to your mentor. And also, it's just a matter of keeping up those communications those emails, those 4 emails a year, those meaningful engagement once a year, so that you can understand what they're working on, so you could potentially see how you could provide value. And there's concrete things too. I mean, you might find out about a fellowship that this person could apply for, or you might nominate them for an award. That's always a thing that you can be thinking about too, is I want to think about, how can I help my mentor be more successful? Well, if I hear of an award that he or she would be eligible for, I'll email them and I'll say, I heard of this award. I'd love to nominate you. What do you think about that? And they'll probably be thrilled. And when they win the award, they'll take you to the, the award ceremony. Honestly, that's actually happened to me.
Well, great. Thanks, Alaina. We are out of time now. There are 2 questions in queue. I'm going to just fast forward through these. Zishwan, if the person that your mentor, if they're not responding to you, there's no way to know whether it's that they didn't get the email, or they're just busy, or they don't want to respond to you. You don't have anything to lose. Go ahead and just follow up with an email and say, just checking. And Andrew, if you have trouble coming up with questions to ask, people love to talk about themselves. So just ask them something about themselves. So with that, Alaina, it's been a wonderful, wonderful webinar. Great content. We really appreciate it. We'll have this posted online. The recording will be available in about 2 weeks. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Bye.